Shall we begin? Let's begin now.
Welcome to Given Enough Time, where we talk about that anything is possible without an intelligent being, given enough time. Look at this lawnmower. You might think that this lawnmower could only come about from an intelligent being, but we'll let you see that given enough time. Anything is possible. Look, this is a machete. Machetes are normal. Machetes are everywhere. And given enough time, they will become mower blades. Look at this generator. You might think that this generator will always be a generator, but hey, given enough time, it could connect with other pieces and become a lawnmower. Look at this chair. This chair could, given enough time, connect to the generator and start to become a mower. Look at this wheelbarrow. If you have enough of these, you've got wheels and you've got the frame for a lawnmower. So given enough time, the machete, the chair, the generator, and wheelbarrows could become a lawnmower. Now, of course, this is a joke, but this is how materialists work. They say that given enough time, the pieces will come together to become something that you intuitively know could only come from an intelligent being. Let's look at language, because what we see inside all living cells are functional genes and functional proteins. Genes are functional sequences, a functional arrangement of nucleotides that code for a protein, or some of them are involved in silencing or doing other things with the other genes that become proteins, whether expressing them or silencing them. And so look at this picture of a verse in English and that same verse in Chinese. Now what we're going to look at is translation, turning a functional sequence of nucleotides into a functional sequence of amino acids that's going to become a protein. And so do you think this could ever come about by natural processes over time? A functional sequence of characters and then that corresponding functional sequence of different characters? Well, that's what you would have to believe to be a materialist, to be an atheist, to believe that life could come about without a creator. Because you need functional genes, which is a functional sequence, an arrangement of nucleotides, and then something to turn that into a functional corresponding sequence of amino acids that folds into a protein. So let's look at a protein real quick, because you might not understand what they are. So a protein is it's an object inside living organisms that has different functions. And the function is determined by the shape, and the shape is determined by the sequence of amino acids. Watch one folding here. And so now I want you to see this video of biological translation. Now this is amazing, because this is where the code is turned into a functional object for living organisms. Very similar to what I talked about in the first video of code being turned into an object by a 3D printer. But a 3D printer goes layer by layer. This goes in a linear chain, and then that chain folds up into the object. So check it out here, and just think about the idea that this could come about by natural processes over time. It makes me think of the emperor's new clothes, and how it took a child to just point out that the emperor wasn't wearing any clothes. And it just takes the simple people among us to say that that atheism doesn't have any science. So check out this video.
The job of this mRNA is to carry the gene's message from the DNA out of the nucleus to a ribosome for production of the particular protein that this gene codes for. There can be several million ribosomes in a typical eukaryotic cell. These complex catalytic machines use the mRNA copy of the genetic information to assemble amino acid building blocks into the three-dimensional proteins that are essential for life. Let's see how it works. The ribosome is composed of one large and one small subunit that assemble around the messenger RNA, which then passes through the ribosome like a computer tape. The amino acid building blocks, that's the small glowing red molecules, are carried into the ribosome attached to specific transfer RNAs. That's the larger green molecules, also referred to as tRNA. The small subunit of the ribosome positions the mRNA so that it can be read in groups of 3 letters known as a codon. Each codon on the mRNA matches a corresponding anticodon on the base of a transfer RNA molecule. The larger subunit of the ribosome removes each amino acid and joins it onto the growing protein chain. As the mRNA is ratcheted through the ribosome, the mRNA sequence is translated into an amino acid sequence. There are 3 locations inside the ribosome, designated the A site, the P site, and the E site. The addition of each amino acid is a 3-step cycle. First, the tRNA enters the ribosome at the A site and is tested for a codon-anticodon match with the mRNA. Next, provided there is a correct match, the tRNA is shifted to the P site, and the amino acid it carries is added to the end of the amino acid chain. The mRNA is also ratcheted on 3 nucleotides or 1 codon. Thirdly, the spent tRNA is moved to the E site and then ejected from the ribosome to be recycled. As the protein synthesis proceeds, the finished chain emerges from the ribosome. It folds up into a precise shape determined by the exact order of amino acids. Thus, the central dogma explains how the 4-letter DNA code is, quite literally, turned into flesh and blood.
No, I'm assuming you were amazed by that, even if you're an atheist, because atheists are, at least the ones that I've talked to, are still amazed by biological mechanisms and systems, even though they believe it came about by natural processes over time. But let's look at the most simple ribosome. The ribosome that is in prokaryotic cells and bacteria, in the yogurt that you eat, or the kimchi. It is made of thousands of nucleotides and thousands of amino acids. So when we talked about in the last video the likelihood that natural processes over time could get a sequence of over 800 amino acids right, and the corresponding code, which was over 2,600, now we're talking about thousands of each, thousands of nucleotides and thousands of amino acids. So imagine nature cracking that code, that password, to create a functional ribosome. Of course, people want to tell you that it was little by little, it was more simple and it became more complex over time. But you've got to realize that in order for that to happen, you would need a functional ribosome or something that functions like it. Study the ribosome, study the RNA world hypothesis, which I think is great science fiction. But not only would you need that, you would need code, because you need the thing to turn code into a functional protein. So not only do you need the code and the ribosome or something similar like a ribosome, but it would have to be very complex and long, you would need the tRNA to transfer the amino acid to connect it in the sequence that the code calls for. So you need those 3 things in the same microscopic membrane and around the same time. These arrangements of chemicals are not stable. That's what you need to realize. That's what atheists and materialists need to realize. That if you had one of these either the functional code or the functional ribosome or the functional tRNA, and they were only feet apart on the same planet, doesn't matter. They have to get together. If they were years apart because they're unstable, if they were months apart because they were unstable, do you understand that? Do you understand how time doesn't solve the problem? Because you need multiple parts coming together in the same microscopic membrane around the same time. To have them on different planets, to have them feet apart, to have them inches apart doesn't help. To have them days apart, months apart, years apart doesn't help. They have to come together around the same time in the same microscopic membrane. So, I hope you will agree with me that biological translation kills atheism. Life kills atheism.